then that you talked about the media being shapers and products of culture. Um, would you want to just say a little bit about that in relation to the church?
Yeah, I think we've traditionally thought about media mostly in terms of the way they shape culture and their kind of influence on it. But I think they're involved in sort of they are the culture, and I think we increasingly need to understand that there isn't a clear dividing line between the media and life, or the media and culture, or the media and the church, that we're all suffused in kind of an environment, an atmosphere of symbols and of values that are mediated. And so it's very difficult, I think, anymore to think about influencing media, or the impact the church has on the media, or the media have on the church. I mean, it's much more elastic and much more subsumed in the church is in the media sphere than we have ever thought.
What about here we have religious communicators. I guess a simplistic way of putting it would be to inject certain values or get certain coverage in the media. A lot of striving to represent the church or particular religion fairly. What would be your reflection on that?
Well, yeah. I think the thing that the point I would make is that the media are so effective in framing the question, and in fact they frame and define religion, and they define the symbols, and they have the power to define the symbols and the values and the truth claims regardless of what we do with them. That isn't then to say that we should not try to pursue our own values and our own ideas within the media sphere, but we need to understand that we're doing it within their frameworks, and that we can't provide entirely unique readings of a certain symbol or something like that. That we have to go with what the commonly accepted, in a way, media defined and media framed definitions are. And I think, as I said at the workshop on Wednesday, I think one of the major effects of the media is that religion can't control its own symbols anymore, that the media really reinterpret and use those and shape those in ways that sometimes are out of the control of church and of religious and theological authorities. And we just have to recognize that. There's nothing we can do about that. But I think there is a way in which we can work with those resources that are there in the culture, and give new dimension to that or something. But that's more the project than is projecting a unique kind of message of our own, which is very difficult to do anymore.
Yeah, like speaking of tools that are available in the culture, the social media tools that are all the buzz now. And
yeah, I think you've raised an important point by talking about social media, because the factor here that I think is the most significant is audience activity. That we used to think of audiences as relatively passive, receivers of our message, and the church has been very good at thinking of that way. The sermonic form, homiletics, assumes that there's this passive receiver out there, and your job is to influence them, and that's been the way the churches tend to look at the media. But see, people today are much more active in making their own choices and their own selections. They're autonomous, sociologists would say. They have a great deal more autonomy, and they feel like they have the right to make those kinds of choices and decisions. And there's a general public dissatisfaction with authority. And so the fact that the church would come in and say, well, we're the authoritative source of this, that's not going to work. That the public resists that, audiences resist that. They want to make their own decisions and their own choices. And the media sphere gives them an ever-increasing, ever-expanding marketplace of resources that they can use. So we have to understand their activity in that. And what's interesting about digital media, I think, and social media, is that the digital media and social media, because of their interactivity, because of their protean, they have the ability to be very elastic and malleable, and they can be shaped, and they can be directed at very narrow and niche kinds of ideas and markets, and they can aggregate very small and specific networks of people and of association. The social media have an incredible power to convey information, to build identity, but along the logics that are defined by the audiences, not by sources. So the social media are pull media, not push media. You know, you can't push the ideas into them. People pull the ideas that they want out of them. And that is a shift in focus and paradigm that the church is not caught on to quite yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday they had a panel, and at least two of them were professional journalists, and then the final two were not. And when the final two started bouncing back at what the journalists were saying, you could see they had sort of a clenched reaction because.
Yeah, no, I think journalists also, they labor under the same misperceptions that the church does. And
Yes.
they think that they are the sole source of information, but yet they're out and their stuff goes into the same marketplace, and the public decides. I mean, it's a way very democratic. I mean, it's unsettling. It's not something that I necessarily celebrate, but it's just a fact, and we have to learn to live with that fact.
I'll ask a question, I guess. Hi, my name is Will Ranney. I'm from the United Methodist Church in Ames, Iowa. My question for you is, should we be putting together a theological framework for some of these ideas that seem kind of like science fiction, but seem to be approaching very fast? And then specifically, I'm thinking about virtuality, what people are calling virtuality, are the implications of virtual reality on the future of the church in particular. Is now the time? I guess I'm revealing my premise in the question, but is that, who should be working on that? How should we be looking at that?
Well, theologians ought to be working on that, but they haven't quite caught on to the video recorder yet, I don't think. So, they're still taping on half-inch tapes, and that's a problem. I mean, I hate to be that cynical about it, but they should be, and I think there's a way. I mean, I think we know from the social research that we've done on this that even virtuality will be in the end about sociality. It will be about network. It will be about communication and human interaction. That fan communities that develop online eventually meet. I mean, there's a sense in which people want very much the human relationship to be the defining kind of frame for their identity and for their meaning practice. Now, virtuality is a way to get there, and we need to understand that and what it means about us that we can have elastic and protean versions of ourselves that then engage as we move toward that encounter. That's a very important and profound kind of set of questions that deserve some sort of theological reflection. Now, I'm not a theologian. I don't want to be a theologian. But I think theologians should be looking at that kind of thing. And theology tends to look at the media as it tends to look at culture. It looks at it evaluatively. They stand back and they do a theological evaluation of the culture and say, this is good, this is bad, this fits, this doesn't fit, rather than thinking about how theologians should be involved in some sort of a process of reflection with people as people are engaging faith, if you understand kind of the distinction I'm making. But that's not kind of where theology is. I think that's the kind of paradigm they need, one that they would think about as people are going through these various experiences that the digital realm makes possible, that they're articulating tastes and desires by the choices that they make. All of that is a kind of multi-layered trajectory through the media toward a goal which is still a fairly traditional goal, which is that I want to be in connection, I want to be in community, and this is my way of finding community and being in connection. So yeah, I agree. The theology ought to be reflecting on that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
You're entirely welcome. Good luck. Where will this be?